Hello, and welcome to EQaboveIQ-Parenting with Emotional Intelligence and Healing the Inner Child. Hello. It's been a minute. I know. I'm sorry, but I'm not. I took some space and time to create another podcast called Hegemony Revealed, which will now be changed to Beyond Hegemony shortly. The things happening in the world have really done a lot to a lot of people, myself included. Also, my coaching practice has beautifully flowered, and I have been focusing on my energy on healing people who need the healing. That's pretty evident and needed at the moment. So I took a hiatus from EQ Above IQ, but I promised in the last episode I would be back, so I'm back. I will be doing this bi-weekly again, and you'll have to be patient with me because life is lifing. Okay. But I'm going to be here at least once a month. You'll hear a podcast from me. I'm going to endeavor to be on here for at least bi-weekly. I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to make a promise. I know. All of you who have still been listening to the podcast episodes, I'd like to thank you for your support. You have encouraged me beyond belief. Those of you who have been following the new podcast with my collaborators, Gary and Shahana, on Hegemony Revealed, which is going to be kind of moving into a new phase to Beyond Hegemony, because I want to be solution oriented, just as I am on this podcast as far as parenting and emotional intelligence. I also wanted another platform to sort of just vent out what is going on in the world more than just parenting and inner child healing. It's all connected. That's why I don't want to disconnect it, because the things that are happening in the world are having adverse effects on ourselves and therefore our children. And so it is important that we address things that are actually happening in the world, because we do not live in a bubble of existence of our secular family. We are a community connected with the threads of energy throughout that reverberate throughout the world. Okay. So mind, body, spirit alignment is so important at this time. And so I took some time to align my spirit and my body. I've been working on my health, been dropping some pounds. I've been doing things to try to elevate my vibration, in order to weather this hellscape created by hegemony and all of its minions. Now, today's episode, I'm going to talk about how to help your children navigate this war. Yeah, the war, or should I say genocide, that's happening in Israel against the Palestinian people. Or should I say in Palestine, because Israel is a occupying force and has been for nearly 100 years with the Nakba. And as you know, the numbers are staggering right now. It was actually one of my co-collaborators on my other podcast that just said, I need to take a break. And I encouraged her to take this break. But I also talked about transforming energy. And how do we transform our energy in our home with our kids when we are obviously affected about what's going on in the world? I know a lot of parents have asked me that question. How can I be upbeat and positive and in everything? And I'm telling you right now, you don't need to be upbeat and quote unquote positive. I would put that in the category of toxic positivity, the don't worry, be happy crowd. And it's not the same thing as transforming. It can add to transformation, but I always believe transformation should be authentic. One of the things that is in my arsenal of tools is visualization, binaural frequency music. And what I get the most drive from is education. Education about all things. I say have a polymathic mind. If you don't know what a polymath is, that's a person who has a deep understanding and is good at many things. Basically, they're good dot connectors. They know how to connect the dots. And I will tell you, the part of the reason why hegemony has dissected and segmented every aspect of life into certain categories is if you know what you know about each category well, you can see the manipulation. You can see the narcissism. You can see all the negativity that is being perpetuated on you by scarcity and fear. So what do I do with my son? I'm lucky. My son is totally not interested. Almost like, to me, sometimes I think it's weird. And I'll check in with him and I say, you know what's going on about the world right now with Israel and Palestine? He goes, yeah, Mom, I know what's going on. How are you feeling about it? And he said something very profound. I know it's happening, but I don't want to invest too much of my energy in it. Boom. Mind blown. The mouth of a babe. And I know you could say, well, he's a child. He shouldn't worry about these things. But I know a lot of children right now who are on high level of anxiety and suffering because their parents are. And I was surprised because I haven't been the most peppiest person since this thing started on October 7th. But then again, I've also really jumped into education to try to understand why is this happening. Now, I was aware of the Jewish Palestine, I should say Zionist. I don't want to jump, lump all Jewish people up into this mess. Technically my son is half Jewish. So I definitely don't want to lump Judaism because just like most belief systems, you got good people and you got a-holes. Let's just be honest. You got people who are out for their own, and then you got people who are out for the collective. Our system is set up to push everybody towards being for their own. But now I think what has been beautiful to see is the solidarity from all walks of life. The solidarity. It's like, I don't know about what it was like for you or what it's been like for you, but just to kind of reference a movie, because I think that we have been so indoctrinated into manifesting through media that you'll understand. It's like that scene in Star Wars, the first one, the good one, where Princess Organa's planet got blown up by the Death Star. And Obi-Wan staggers and says it's like a million voices screamed out in pain, and then there was nothing. That's how it's been for a lot of people, because we are connected. We are intrinsically connected by threads of energy. And when people die in mass, no matter where it is in the world, whether it's Congo, because I want to also bring out the fact that these genocides that are happening in orchestrated ways by hegemonic forces, entities, I call them these things because I don't think they're human. I don't think humans, Homo sapiens, behave this way with each other. Anyway, so my son, back to that, before I get too far off, he says he's fine. And so I left it. That's all I can do at this point. Sometimes, you want to probe a little bit more, but sometimes you just want to plant the seed. You want to check in. You want to say, are you okay? And if they ask if you're okay, you can open up. I told my son, he asked me, are you okay? And I said, I actually gave him the scenario of the Death Star, and he understood more. And he jokes with me and says, you do that woo-woo stuff a lot. That's how he says it. But he knows what I mean. He always tries to play a role now because, unfortunately, YouTube has influenced a lot due to the fact that, I'm a working single mom and I get zero support as far as breaks and time off from his other parental unit because, that person chose the path they did. And unfortunately, the only connection that other parental unit has with my son is through video gaming, which is actually the bane of my existence because of the negative messaging, hegemonic messaging that are within. Speaking of, I don't know if any of you guys ever play games. I occasionally play Scrabble on my phone, and I refuse to pay for it. I don't really want to invest financially into these types of mechanisms. So I play Scrabble because I like the way it keeps my brain cognitively light and versatile and quick. And also I'm an avid reader. So I play this game and there's these ads that you have to tolerate. And one of them God, it's for a game. I won't even give you the name because I don't want to support it. The gist of the ad is showing a woman being deserted by her partner, pregnant or with a baby and another child, and they're trudging through the snow. And your whole point of the game is to build them a home, build them a fireplace and everything. And it's so manipulative. And also it sends a messaging of this is how it is for women. And I'm not saying it isn't sometimes, but it's almost normalizing it. And I would like the developers of these games to find a different way to make their revenue rather than to feed off the suffering of people, especially women and children. And as in Palestine, that is who is getting the brunt of death. Women and children, because that's the majority that's on the Gaza Strip. So my coworker, like I said, my collaborator on my other podcast, Beyond Hegemony, said she's having a hard time looking beyond hegemony because of what's happening right now. And, I encouraged her that we can discuss whatever we want. But the reason why I want to imagine a post-hegemonic world is because I want this hellscape to never repeat itself. We need to get these people out of power some way. And I think we have more power than we know. And I think that's why they work so hard to keep us in fear and oppressed. And I just would like us to entertain a different approach than suffering. I mean, we live in this dualistic world, but can we vibrate higher? Can we imagine, transform the hate and anger into something else? I don't know if that's love. I would say authenticity, because there were some studies done about how the frequency of authenticity is higher than even love. So I would like us to get very authentic with each other to create communities of trust and love. That's an after effect. And so how do we do that? We have to start speaking to our inner child for guidance more, because the purity of a child's mind and heart is part of the reason why they are the victims, the perfect victims of these monsters. They come into this world with this beautiful mission, I imagine, to get what was broken fixed in ourselves. They don't have to be burdens. I know I spent a huge part of my childhood feeling like a burden to my parents. That feeling never really went away. That's the sad part. So you want to make sure you have these conversations with your kids about why you're stressed, why you're feeling down, and make sure they know it has nothing to do with them. Tell them that there's not much they can do to change it. Maybe be a little bit more cooperative, but don't put that burden of your feelings on your children. So this situation, I've transformed it in my mind. And it's because I have a polymathic mind. It's because I have been educating myself and trying to understand what this conflict was really about, what's really going on in the Congo. And unfortunately, but it makes a lot of sense, Israel is connected to a lot of upheaval in the world, including Congo, where they paid the militias, including Rwanda, which they helped pay the militias. They paid the militias, the massacre in Rwanda. There's a lot of things that are hidden. And until we see the truth, we're going to keep operating with pieces of information rather than the whole story. And when you don't have the whole story, it's easy to imagine other things. But I think this year, 2024, Happy New Year, Abundant New Year. I stopped saying Happy New Year. Happy is overrated. Just being honest. This new year is about the reveal. And I don't know about you guys, but there's all kinds of areas where the reveal is happening. And I'm very grateful for it, no matter how terrifying and sad it is for people involved. This year is revealing to me how the state of Israel is connected to a lot of our woes, and that the Zionists hide behind the religion of Judaism as a cover for their activities, the connections they had to Epstein, and then Epstein's connections to everyone else in power. It's all very orchestrated. It's all very sad. The fact that we focus on money. I send protection to all those entities pushing up against those who would endeavor to harm innocence and people just trying to live. I reject this concept of the Great Reset that the World Economic Forum is pushing. My inner child imagines those children and men and women, consciousness floating free and protecting those they can and holding their hands, lifting them up out of the rubble, giving them hope and inspiration, and their martyred lives have purpose. I also imagine them doing what they can to block all pain and suffering. I imagine they will be free, truly free, and all of us meeting together one day to keep this force of these entities at bay and down where they belong, or at least having a way for them to change. You see, I try not to wish harm onto people, even when they're harming me and everyone else. I do wish for accountability. I really do. You see, the pain of Netanyahu losing his brother is his supposed motivation for doing this to millions of people. He's Polish. He's not a Semite. And using the words anti-Semite when you're not even Semitic is, again, a ruse. You see, I thought that I was going to be talking about parenting again. See, it's hard for me not to just talk about parenting because my inner child is triggered. My inner child is actively trying to make sense of it. My inner child is connecting to those children, going, what if that happens to me? And that's the part that we need to really get our heads around. Listen, I see what they're doing as a testing ground, because if they can do it to those people, they're going to try to do it to all of us at some point. They, hegemony. They, Zionists. They, the ruling class, if you don't understand what they is. They, the people who have a psychotic sense of entitlement to the world and its people. They who look at us as commodity and not living, sentient beings, deserving of life, liberty, and the sovereignty to exist. They, the Neanderthals, who are motivated by constant barbarity and cannibalism. Yeah, I studied something about that too. Canaanites, cannibalism. Yeah, that's another whole podcast. But so what I recommend right now is that people really start to go in and find ways to be compassionate with themselves. I'm not really caring about the others right now. You need to be compassionate with yourself. Your feelings, your anger, your sadness, whatever is reverberating in you right now. Make sure it's yours and not an external thing. Take a break from the news, especially if you're watching mainstream media. Dump it. Half that crap is not true. Half of it is owned by Zionists who own the complete media platform, including movies, television, and everything else. Yeah, they do. You can look that up and do your research on about it. But the point is that they have a very solid agenda, and we need to refute that. And we need to fight against that by going into ourselves, loving ourselves, and then therefore loving our neighbors. Take away the judgment. Take away the ideas that you have about Arabs, about Jews, about Black people, about Christians, about anything, and look for the humanity in all of us. Look at the child. There's a reason why we can look at children as innocent, because they are, but we're all just children walking around in adult suits, pretending we have it all figured out while we spread our trauma to everyone we meet. We need to deal with our trauma in our relationships with others because we're just spreading it. So until we can go into ourselves, go into the pain, stop running away. Don't run away from the pain that you're feeling. Look at it, examine it, ask your whys, ask your triggers, become more emotionally intelligent about your experience, become curious, and then you will stop suffering. Running away just prolongs the pain. Examine it. Become your own little scientist. But this is a short episode. I just wanted to come on here real quick and say, I'm back, y'all. And hopefully you will continue to listen and support. You can go to thisreallifebooks.com. There's a support tab in the podcast section. There is also a way to do it if you are listening on Spotify. There's also a way to do it. I'm on LinkedIn, Cash App, TRLB, capital B, Books. TRL Books is my Cash App if you want to support in that way. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to get these out, but I'm also just living in alignment in my own life. And so trying not to pressure myself, I move the way the universe and the moon and the stars move me at this point, because that gives me peace. And when I'm at peace, I can send that peace out to you. So I do hope you have a blessed day. Please hold compassion in your heart for all people, including yourself. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.